that has big time camp. What the movie will be the ultimate champ. You might think you're crazy, might think they're diseased, but they're watching all their chance to find the best of beasts.
We rate each movie in 5 categories, none of which are objective quality.
It's Stan, G, and Jack and Nick who watch it till it's finished, because the love for this movie can be diminished. And maybe the film's plot has no rhyme or reason, but that's a part of charm.
Colin's breath is off the season.
It's low budget film that is much true. They find a flick that monster boogaloo. Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo.
Yak Mala! Welcome back, my friends, to the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo. I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu, and I'm super happy to be with you to talk about Season 13, Days of Future Past. And joining me in the past that looks towards the future, I have my good friend, James Cotta.
For this episode, please only refer to me as James Cotta 2000.
James Cotta 2000. Excellent. And now we have Jack Hall 1900.
Sup, Boogaloo babies. I would prefer to be called Jack Hall Cherry.
The cherry on top of the show. Yeah. Okay. And meanwhile, Nick Boxer. I don't have anything else for you.
Greetings and salutations. I am glad Jim and Jack are finally out as sex robots. That was a hard secret to keep all these years.
It's very true. I mean, good. And this is the perfect movie for them being sex robots, as we are talking about Cherry 2000. And, I know soon enough we're going to get to hear Nick, but let Jim tell the folks what Days of Future Past is all about.
Well, over the long history of film, many films have predicted the future. From for the earliest days of Metropolis, people were giving visions of the future. So this season is all movies that take place in their future, but the date that they take place has already passed, much like Blade Runner or Akira or Strange Days. Man, I love Strange Days. Or Cherry 2000, which takes place in 2017.
Uh-huh. Right. Now, everybody's favorite part of the show, Nick Boxer, please.
Oh, I was wondering just right as we were going in the cast, like, Cherry 2000, like, I didn't see a date in this movie. Are we just assuming it takes place in 2000 because of the title? Because that's the model of the robot.
There's an offhand reference to something in 2017.
Oh, thank God. I mean, us making a mistake like that would be almost unforgivable. We'd have to move this into another season. It would mess up the octagon. It could have been ugly.
Well, and it was Jim's choice of movie in Jim's season, so
yeah, it would have been embarrassing for me.
Absolutely.
All right, in the future of 2017, the world is sort of falling apart. Manufacturing has come to a halt. We're basically living off the remnants of the past world. Our hero has a sex robot. He mistakenly gets his sex robot wet, which is not a euphemism as much as I would like it to be. And she breaks down. It turns out she is a rare model, and although he can save the software, he cannot save the chassis, meaning the body of the robot. Well, he soaks for a little while and goes on a few future dates, and we sort of explore this world which is immediately forgotten because the rest of this movie takes place in the wasteland. He decides he needs to, replace his sex robot. So he is told if he travels to this border town on the edge of the wasteland, he can hire somebody called a tracker, who doesn't make any sense why they call them trackers, but these are people that go into the wasteland and I guess track down forgotten goods, just old technology. Well, he is told the best tracker out there is Six Finger Jake. He can't find him, but he finds sort of his protege, a beautiful girl. Doesn't want to hire her, but there's some shenanigans with some other so-called trackers. A guy who looks like Slim Pickens, but is not Slim Pickens. But all that silliness aside, he finally goes with the beautiful girl played by Melanie Griffith, and they go off into the wasteland. Whereupon they run afoul of a Tim Thomerson-led gang of suburban Californialite-themed gang that rule the wasteland. And yeah, they travel and search around and eventually find a sex robot chassis, and it's a lot of fun. And yeah, I believe the chassis was slated in like Section 18, but it doesn't really matter. It's just post-apocalyptic fun. The end.
I don't know about you guys, but I think that might be Nick's most accurate ever recap of a film.
I've only seen this movie about 800 times, so.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't know. At one time, it was just in the regular rotation. I like this movie.
It's weird. This is a movie that I've almost watched 100 times and put back. There was a period like back before the internet made nudity easy, where Melanie Griffith was just just at the time she was really getting really big. Working Girls came out, and I read somewhere she's really come so far. I mean, practically every role that she's had before this was she was nude. So there I was minutes later down at the video store looking for every Melanie Griffith movie from prior that I pretty much could have, and I went through a run, and it not even that I find her that attractive, to be honest with you. It's just guaranteed nudity. I mean, it was rare back in the day. It was not as easy to get to, and I would always pick this one up and then look at the back and see PG and go, yeah, PG, and go, no, that's not. I gotta have a guaranteed Melanie Griffith pre-Working Girl guaranteed R. That's what I was looking for. So,
although I think the argument could be made. This is Melanie Griffith at her most attractive.
I would, yeah, I think so, for sure.
Attractive. This was 3 weeks after she gave birth to her first child, too, that she started filming this.
Okay.
Good for her.
Mm-hmm.
With Stephen Bauer, her then husband. I don't know. I don't find her. I watched this movie, and I go, and she was nominated for an Academy Award 3 years after the filming of this for Working Girl, and I'm like, I don't even know how she had a career. I don't get it. She's the weakest part of this movie.
It's a wacky little movie. I want to come back to the sex bot, the Cherry 2000, the titular character.
You said tit.
It feels. I know. It feels. It feels like waterproof is something you'd really want in a sex robot.
Absolutely. That was one of my notes. Like the sex robot that gets destroyed by the water. So at what point, does the sex robot feature an auto clean method, like some sort of oven that self-cleaning oven where it's just oh, you're never going to smell bad even after I do sex robot things to you.
I was hoping for a euphemism in there.
Sex robot things. Even after
Now,
after I all your parts.
Is it 100% clear that the water is what caused the malfunction?
Well, yeah.
I mean, there's water there, but
There's
you know,
suds too.
But still,
there's-
soapy water is still
But,
a big part of the cleaning process.
no, but I just thought that was like a sensual lovemaking scene they did for the movie, and she breaks down.
Well, no, because
in some way, just because.
the repair guy says this thing's full of water.
Yeah.
Oh,
Like,
okay.
that's
I think a guy who's
That's
seen
what
this
he
about
thought.
8,000 times would know that.
It's the problem with a movie that's in the rotation is you, I jumped over the tracker that the tracker who says he's a tracker is Brian James, the great Brian James. Glad we're seeing him back so soon.
Yeah, this is I'd like to get to our new regular feature. What did this film teach me? Anybody got something?
that if you want to make a movie look like it takes place in the future, throw in a La Car in the background.
Throw in everything in the background, because that's actually what they tossed in here was everything.
I think 2017 was the peak of sex robot production.
This movie is probably the most accurate movie possibly that we've had of the season for the future, because since the sex robot thing is happening, they're not as advanced or as good, but we actually see, I mean, what I'm saying, Nick, is there's still a chance for happiness for you. They're developing these things now, but here's what this film taught me. Chauvinism will still be fine in the future. Don't worry, that isn't going away. Mm-hmm. And Heinz ketchup will still be the dominant ketchup brand in the future.
What I learned is that in a change from the chauvinistic attitudes, they're actually going away from the really beautiful Cherry 2000 model and going to more, useful sex robot models, one that will do your taxes, one that will do other things, nothing quite as boisterous as the Cherry 2000 model. That's my takeaway.
You'll get bored with all that sex.
Yeah, exactly.
What a conversationalist too, the Cherry 2000.
Oh, for sure.
Could keep you both physically and mentally engaged.
Oh yeah.
Vaseline was invented, but not by who.
And so that just threw her right off. Like, whoa.
Nick, what did you learn from Cherry 2000?
I told you that 2017 was a good year for sex robots.
Well,
I also learned.
Though was 2000 was the good year for sex robots.
Yeah.
I assume this model came out 17 years earlier. That's why it was so rare.
Well, yeah, exactly, and they don't make that model anymore.
Yeah,
because that's what the repair guy / sexbot salesman says, is that you could get a more up to date one.
Yeah. That more up to date one that he says isn't as good. I'm going to sell you one of these ones over here. These are more up to date, not as good as what you had before. Don't get me wrong.
Well, but in fairness, I mean that happens with everything. I mean, when you think of Nick's VCRs, I mean, his early VCRs are much better than his later VCRs.
That's right.
This is
VCRs you get now are total crap.
Yeah.
And when you think of it, man, you'd think like a newer model would have to update. And can you imagine having sex with your sex robot and have to stop to, have a Windows 95 update or?
Oh, when was the last time
we
you
never
had a
found
good
out
buffering?
if it was an iOS or Windows operating system. Mm-hmm. So that,
Could go for a good buffering.
Yeah.
I tried explaining this plot to my lovely wife, and the part that she got stuck on was
what's your voice?
Lacey under Alcata. The part where he's got the tiny compact disc with her personality on it was the part she kept getting hung up on. And she's like, so he found another sex robot that looks exactly like. I'm like, yeah, they got lots of them. I'm like, what's the problem? Like, well, it's not. She doesn't have the same personality as the sex robot he had, in that she doesn't have the same 12 pre-recorded sentences.
Yeah, it's super easy to see how he could fall in love with that, right? Like,
Hey, man, no. In defense, I mean, if you need a particular phrase to get off, and your sex robot can't say that phrase, that's a no-go. That is a fatal flaw.
I'm sure you could never teach the new sex robot the phrase. I'm sure they aren't that advanced.
I love the fact that he constantly just
Pamela
listens.
Gidley was a lovely woman, though. If you're going to look at all the robots, none of them were as attractive as Pamela Gidley, who played Cherry 2000.
No, and that's exactly the point of the movie, right? You know, is that I mean, let's be honest, right? If he went into that shop and every woman looked better than Pamela Gidley, well, then we wouldn't have a movie whatsoever, right? It'd be
instead,
oh, cool.
he's offered you can buy Gort. If that's your thing.
They also didn't go out of their way to make any of the other sex robots attractive.
True.
No,
they were all pretty slutty. Like, you know, if you wanted a slutty sex robot, they were all out there. But if you wanted the girl next door robot, you were out of luck.
You need the classic.
Well, Pamela Gidley, like I say, though, she really was. I mean, you know, she passed away in 2018, but which is unfortunate. But she was like in the early. I mean, she was around. She always had a career, but man, you look at her and you're like, that she's got more star power. She's got more charisma, I think, than Melanie Griffith. She's 8 years younger as well. So I don't know. I that's the part about the film that like, I understand she doesn't have the personality, but really, is that what we're looking for in a woman?
I mean, it's not. Well, that's kind of the crux of the story. Is that what you're looking for in a woman?
Yeah. I mean, come on.
And so, you say you're single, Jack.
What?
What's interesting to me about this film is that it's got some goofy stuff. It's got some, you know, the light side of post-apocalyptic, because it's not like you're, you know, clamoring for gasoline or something. Like it's actually like a more dystopic than it is post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
But there's actually some like underlying messages of this film.
Sure, absolutely.
We're really not used to.
Cleverness. Now, I do want to point out that when you're going to the town of Glory Hole, I hope there's only one glory hole, because you wouldn't want to end up in the wrong glory hole. Trust me, that's something you don't want to end up in the wrong glory hole. Things happen.
I love that they got away with calling
little personal
a PG-13 film. Because they never do a wink to it. It's just like, yeah, it's the glory hole.
That's the
another 10 miles to the glory hole.
It's the thing that they did in this movie, and it had $10 million budget when it was filmed in 1985. It wasn't released till 1988 because the Orion had absolutely no idea what to do with this film, because it's just so crazy. So I mean,
yeah, there's a huge market for sex robot PG-13 movies. I mean,
they had no idea. And
who the hell would know how to market this thing?
Is it a romance? Is it an action? Is it a comedy? Is it a future? What is it? But the thing is, they set everything in the future in the beginning, and they have a lot of future stuff in the beginning. And then I'm guessing to save money, then they put it in a setting where you needed no effects, no money, no nothing, basically. They shot it in Nevada and existing, places and scenes. It's a mid-level. It's a mid-level studio, Orion Pictures, right? And this is a mid-level that's the equivalent, like I say, $25 million budget. For us, that's pretty high. So it's a I don't know, it's an odd film, it's an interesting film. I'm going to be curious to see how it scores.
Yeah.
I think that was a good segue into our scoring.
That's what I was trying to do, buddy.
All right. Well played.
Then it was a terrible segue because obviously no one else followed you there.
Well, you did.
Yeah, but I'm a little quicker than the average bear.
It's true. He is a bear.
I'm equally as bright as the average bear.
Yeah.
I'm smarter than a dumber bear. That's the weird kind of.
You know what? Why didn't that sex robot seller dude? Why didn't he have any male models? You don't think females would want? I mean, apparently all the females in this movie are actually in real life. When the women are
that was a different dark ride. If you went to the left, I think that's where all the male.
I thought
they
maybe
go in and there's. You can
that
have
was a cool little ride, though. You know, they get on the little car and they go around and tour the sex robots. I enjoyed that. I wish we had that here.
You can have the Court. You can have the Robbie the Robot. Those are clearly the kinds of robots that that a woman looking for a sex robot.
Oh man, Robbie the Robot in bed, I hear is amazing.
Yeah, it's a guy. It's a robot with a whole bunch of moving tools, or one with no penis. Those are the sex robot options for women.
Yeah. The Gort one slightly less interesting.
Lost in space, or stay there stood still. What do you want for your robot? For your sex robot lady?
Want me to box that up, ma'am? In our search for the ultimate B movie, we rate each film in 5 categories. None of these categories is objective quality. The first one is called Schlock Appeal, and we start with Stan.
What I find very interesting is that when we in our brief conversation about this movie, we talked almost entirely about the first third of the movie, which takes place in the dystopic universe part in the city, and almost nothing about the last 2/3, which took part in the desert of Nevada, because I think the thing is that first third is incredible. It's like in your face, everything's happening, and it's so weird, and there's no shortage of crazy stuff in it, and so that's probably like a 9 on the Schlock meter. And then you have the stuff in Nevada, which it just becomes kind of a standard old sci-fi like chase down movie, and so that's more like a 4 on it. And so it's kind of like splitting that down. So I think I'll just give it a 7 because I did enjoy that first third for that.
Yeah, that first third is great, but my big problem with schlock in this movie. On paper, this should be the schlockiest movie on the face of the earth. It's a movie that centers around a sex robot in like a dystopian type future. This should be schlock out the chimney, like to the moon. And unfortunately, it doesn't have that, that sense of danger or sliminess. At no point did I ever feel like a breast was going to pop out for no apparent reason.
Because you knew it wasn't going to from the rating.
This is,
for the watching 8,000 times.
No, I like this movie a whole lot, but it still is schlock with training wheels. There's no sense of danger to it. Like, it didn't have to be a breast. It could have been, like, a bad CG or bad, like, monster popping out or something. But everything made sense. This is a studio film. It does not feel all that schlocky. So I can only give it a 5.
This film it's an odd mix of there is up-and-coming actors, B-movie stars, and veteran character actors. Like, so and much like the film itself, it doesn't quite know what it is. So it's not super schlocky. I would only give it a 4, but the title, Cherry 2000, and the poster, the cover, the box art, are worth a point. That is some of the schlockiest. That Melanie Griffith with the gun, or that's something. Red hair. That picture's super schlocky. So 5 is my score.
I was checking out that poster, and I can understand why you almost rented this so many times.
Oh yeah,
because a painted 1980s action movie poster kind of look. The cast is incredible as far as B movie actors go. I mean, as I said, Brian James. We got Robert Starr in a small part. Tim Thomerson, like there's a lot of weight there. Even Larry Fishburne, who was, just hanging around doing gigs at this time. He wasn't yet Lawrence Fishburne.
This is just got that breakout role in Dream Warriors, the Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Just before. Yeah.
I think it does have a lot of just odd bits to it. The trailer for this would cut together really strangely. It's like Logan's Run meets Burning Man. I don't know what it is, like in the middle there. 7 is what I'm going to go with as well.
I will say Tim Thomerson, we were talking about B-movie legends. I think he was the best part of this movie.
He was great.
He was great. That's not your normal villain. I mean, he's evil, but he's not like he's charming. He was really good.
Before we move on from that, you mentioned the poster there, Jack. Once again, that poster, and then the scene where Melanie Griffith is changing clothes. Again, we learn that there's no bras in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, they lose the technology to make bras in the future. I think that's well known.
Yeah. That seems to be fairly consistent in the films we've been seeing. Stan, more heart than budget.
It's
stated
just nice
budget,
stuff and not rape, wasn't it?
$10 million budget in 1987.
And I think, it's interesting because my first instinct is to give this movie a low score because of the $10 million budget. But then I look at it and I look at all the actors, like all these great character actors and everybody that they managed to cast, and then I look at the look of the film, which is spectacular. Like, they loaded every single set with as much gack as they humanly could. I mean, I don't know that they were overall successful in like making you believe this world per se, but it looks amazing. And so for me, I'm going to go with a 7.
Yeah, I think everyone thought this was like going to be the next Star Wars.
With sex robots.
Unfortunately, it's a movie about sex.
Thought that.
No, is it the action figure deal that makes you think that?
I can picture the commercial now. Take your road trip to the town of Glory Hole with your old action figures. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 6.
All right.
5.
I think that, so much of that budget went into the one big set piece where she's got to get across the border, and and the car gets picked up by a magnet, and there's rocket launchers.
No. If that actually cost a ton of money, wouldn't it have made more sense?
I know that's what I love about that section is like clearly that was the thing that like they wanted to, this is the big like act turn moment where like they're firing rocket launchers. The car that she's driving gets picked up by a magnet. They then have to have a shootout while the car is hanging in midair, and then the car gets dropped into a water drainage pipe. There's a bit in it where she says that she implies that she's done this several times, and that time went well.
Don't know how it goes worse.
Plus, it worked out that way, like Indiana Jones. Like she's done this repeatedly. 7 is what I'm going for too, because I think that they really stretched everything else because that was like a $2 million scene. What the fuck moments?
It's an interesting one because it's so designed in so many ways. So I think the what the fuck moments for me, yeah, of course, you talk about the whole crux of the story being him and a sex robot who's about as interesting as like a tuna fish sandwich, but it's like, and the fact that the sex robot gets broken by water. I mean, the whole start is a little bit broken in that regard, but like there's just a few things I love. Like he gets home and it's just like, oh, what do you want your favorite meal? So apparently his favorite meal is like a really shitty looking hamburger and lima beans. I'm like, okay. That's interesting. There's the whole dating thing and the way that works, like you need to show your sex real to somebody else and then you get a contract to do that. Like, what an incredibly odd throw-in part to the movie that, as funny as it was, you totally didn't need it in there to progress anything, really. I love the fact that once we hit the glory hole, that when he's checking in, there is a cat in a water bottle. And it's like, what the hell?
That I didn't notice.
It's like,
that's tremendous.
Why do you keep a cat in a water bottle? That's the weirdest thing. So, and of course the crazy, like, Tim Thomerson's gang of, like, Hawaiian gay porn thugs or whatever that was. At the end, after the fire at Sky Ranch, it looked like there was a kid on it, and it looked like he's peeing on the fire. It was really quite hilarious. But one of my favorite things is when Harry Carey Sr. shows up, and he is the guy at the last chance brothel and gas. And I'm thinking, now, if there's two things that really go together, it's brothels and gas station right there.
Apparently that brothel only has one girl, though.
And only one girl, yes, exactly. Well, it's long in disuse, so it's got some really cute moments. Again, everything is not quite right, but it's got some cute moments that together don't add up to a whole lot of what the fuck. I'm gonna give it a 6.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple WTFs in here, but on a whole, I think it was the WTFs actually are just sort of furthering the story, because to explore any of the WTFs, that would have been like, or to get there more efficiently, would have been time consuming and boring. I think somebody with the script or the director went, if it is not fun, it's not in this freaking script. Like the breakdown of the robot. Well, what is the easiest way we can break a sex robot? Water. Okay, moving on. Yeah, I can't rate it high. I'm going with a 4 though.
Yeah, it's the same score I got. I mean, the only thing that it's like because you don't want to mix up crazy concept and WTFs, right? And I think most of the stuff that seems like a WTF is actually crazy concept, or actually it's just them. I mean, they're trying to build a world 30 years in the future, so they're trying to make it unique, and so they're doing all this weird stuff, but it's all on purpose. The only thing to me that was WTF was the part where they're escaping with the Cherry 2000 from the Tim Thomerson's group's ranch, and he ends up in some hole, and then they're look out for the bees, and I'm like, what? Like, that came out of nowhere. And then it turns out after, when doing the research in the movie, his complex was a bee sanctuary they were filming it at. So I guess they just went, we have bees, let's use them. And that, to me, is a pretty good WTF. But yeah, that's it. So I got a 4.
When our hero is escaping, he sets fire to one of the Quonsets, and it's the one where they keep the bees. And then Tim Thomerson gets stung by all the bees. That's why he's all puffed up for the rest of the movie. But yeah, watch out for the bees. I had that written down. So after they leave there, they make it to that last chance brothel and gas, and where he's got a big supply of broken down equipment too. But there's border guards before you get to Tim Thomerson. Tim Thomerson routinely kills people who wander too close to his place, unless they're cool enough to hang out at his Quonset house. There seems to be some kind of like, you're cool enough to like at least hang out for a little while.
I do the same thing here at home. Yeah. I do the same thing. I kill you unless you're cool enough to enter, and that's right. That's why nobody's cool enough to enter.
And then possibly after that too. And then you make it to the last chance. Brothel and gas. I can't figure out where their customers come from.
Yeah.
Well, apparently Tim Thompson was one of the customers to the girl.
Yeah. So, I mean, is that like That doesn't seem like a sustainable business model, though. So that structure was a bit weird. I think I think it'll come back up in memorable moments and crazy concept for me. But the idea in all of this that it has a moral to the story is what the fuck on its own, let alone how it fits into the next two categories. I'm still only going to go with a 5, though. Memorable moments.
This is one of those cases where, I mean, when you see Cherry 2000 and you see the box, like, you think, damn, this is going to be a sexy movie, and it is not. Not at all. And I think that watching it, though, it's interesting because there's a lot of things that I think are going to stick in my head, but at the same time, it's not so much it's just little tidbits that are going to pop up every now and then, less so the whole thing. So I know that I'll remember it. I'm going to go with a 6.
I just got to say that, when you mentioned that it's going to be a sexy movie, the opening credits also is like all like James Bond silhouette, making you think that there's going to be a bunch of nudity in this film.
And there's lots of silhouette use in the direction in this, because even like Melanie Griffith is taking off her clothes at one point, and she's silhouetted against stuff, and it's just like, but it nothing, of course. Hot. Yeah, exactly. Her body double work.
PG-13.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, so there's nothing else there.
Yeah. For me, sorry, did you give a score?
I did.
Yeah. For me, the most memorable moment, and I don't know if it's actually all that memorable. It just strikes me as particularly novel, and I've always sort of come back to this moment. The lawyers negotiating one-night stands. That always struck me as a particular, like, that could happen.
Not now. Well, now, actually, I guess maybe more so than ever.
Yeah, no, exactly. Didn't Trump do that for him?
Now it's just in user agreements. You just, like, when you click on the app, like, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a fun throwaway movie. So, yeah, it's memorable enough. So, 5, it's not, like, it isn't, like, the greatest movie in the world, but I can easily see, and as I said, it was in my rotation for a while. So, yeah, it's memorable enough. It's not over the top, but if you're looking for this movie, this is the movie you want.
Anybody else really want a complete list at this point of movies that have at one point made Nick's rotation?
100%. I want to see that list. Yeah.
I'd love to see. Yeah, I got 5 for 2 reasons. Number one, the poster, again, the box art. I've remembered it for 30 years. Like, it's totally just so memorable to me and stuck in my head. And such a tease of what the movie isn't. And there's one line in this. So, I mean, like I say, a lot of this is more comedy than anything else, which is kind of strange, and there's a lot of one-liners and things. But so Tim Thomerson has a girlfriend, and that used to also be the lead character's Sam Treadwell's girlfriend.
Ginger,
yeah. So Ginger, and they're going to go out on a hunt to chase them down after they escape their place, and oh man, they're going to need some sandwiches. So she makes sandwiches because, she's more around because he loves her personality, though, and she makes these sandwiches. So anyways, at the end, they find everybody, and like he gives up on the sex robot, the Cherry 2000, and goes with Melanie Griffith, the hero does, and Tim Thomerson gets killed, spoiler alert, and she's like, well, let's have those sandwiches, and she sits down with Cherry 2000, and hands her a sandwich, and Cherry 2000 takes the sandwich and opens it up and looks at the inside of this like peanut butter and jam sandwich or whatever and goes, pretty. And I'll never forget that. That was so funny. Such a funny scene and on purpose. So the very good there. So 5.
I think what I'm going to take away from this movie, what I'm going to remember is I'm going to remember it as being smarter than it is. Because I'm going to remember the subtext of dating and love that this film is like. It really the moral of the story, the structure of the film is there's the ease of the sex robot. Then there's the cold complexity of dating life where you, I mean, that cliche has obviously been around for 30 years. Like, you can't say anything to a woman anymore. That coldness of that relationship. And then, Melanie Griffith says later, like, that's not what love is. Love's messy and love's like crappy. And sometimes like, you don't look awesome. And sometimes you, burn the
We're not
nice
all
hamburger.
glamour pusses.
Yeah, we're all, yeah. Not everyone. I mean, some are as homely and everyday as Melanie Griffith.
Yeah, that was a great line from her. We're not all glamour pusses. You know, this brings me back to something I learned from this movie, actually. There, James. Thank you, because I also learned that real life women are better than robots. But I didn't learn whether or not real life women are better than your own hand. I think that's still up for debate.
I think you should pitch the sequel.
I mean, overall, the moral of the story is don't fall in love with your fleshlight.
Well, the Cherry 2000 had the personality of a fleshlight.
There better be an R-rated cut somewhere out there of this film somewhere.
Now's the time if they have a director's of this. Now, there's a gap in production. Roll that thing out.
I think the writer in particular, his career has really gone. I mean, both the director's career was pretty good. I mean, mainly things like ER and whatever CSI, things like that. But I mean, the writer, I think he just look it up, but I think he's like right now fairly successful in Hollywood as a writer.
And there's this visual parallel of Six Finger Jake has these. His house is like underground in this cave, and he's got about 500 toaster ovens, all boxed up in big stacks. And then our hero makes it to the storage place, and all of the sex robots are just wrapped in plastic, hanging, waiting. And I thought, like, they're like actually paralleling the utility of this. I think I'm going like one step further than the filmmakers did.
I
that's
think
what's
Jim
going to be
has thought too much about the symbolism of this movie. I can't wait for your university course.
The writer Michael Almuriata. Anyways, he just did the Tesla movie that came out in January with Ethan Hawke. He wrote and directed that. And so he's still around. So I mean, let's petition him to bring this to the sequel finally. Of Cherry 3000.
Yeah, you'd have to update that date.
I mean, the thing is, nowadays, I mean, you can bring Melanie Griffith back as a robot because nowadays, after all the plastic surgery,
I don't know if she'd look real. I don't know if look realistic enough.
Yeah, bring me on.
7's what I got there. Crazy concept.
This is an interesting one, and I feel like I could be lower than everybody else because for me, as I was watching this, I kept thinking, I did think of Logan's Run, like I did think of like all these other, sci-fi movies of the era, and it just kind of felt like this is just a big collection of stuff where they tried really hard to make it like sci-fi and crazy, but it was just crazy stuff thrown into a movie, and it wasn't actually the concept itself, other than the fact that it's a sex robot that was crazy. So I really only have a 4.
Actually, having watched the film, I want to give it a really low score myself, except for the fact that I do have to look at, this is a $10 million movie made about a sex robot, rated PG. So, I mean, I can't, because I've seen the movie and I understand the concept. If you read the script, it's not that crazy, so I'm going to sort of split the difference, and 5, right down the middle of the road.
I think it's much, much higher. I mean, yeah, it's got its DNA in films like Blade Runner and, Logan's Run and Mad Max and all this and that. But yeah, just the whole idea in 1987 that you made a sex robot movie, and again, you made a PG-13, and this, but that you would have a moral to it and all this stuff. And just that you're mixing all these genres so it doesn't become any one thing. Like, you don't embrace any one thing. You don't embrace the sex. You don't embrace the action. You don't embrace the comedy. You try and put everything in there in this potpourri. I think it's an 8.
Wow. I think a lot of the elements are fairly standard, but I think the part that pushes it outside for me is at a time when every post-apocalyptic film was doing the Mad Max thing, this one's shot in the desert and doesn't do a Mad Max thing. The bad guys don't look like punk rockers; they look like weirdo yuppie hippies. Living in Quonsets and having nice meals together. Like, it's not at all what we've seen in some of the other films we've done this season. But the PG-13 thing is weird. So 6 is what I've got.
And it would have been PG probably if not for the one F-bomb they decided to throw in for no reason.
I probably still couldn't have gotten it with that opening scene, but
maybe.
All right. Well, the film does get punished with a -1 for being over 95 minutes. It is 99. And that brings it to a final total of 56 out of 100. And if I had the list open, I would tell you exactly what that was between.
We know, though, that again, it as a decent movie has slotted into decent movie status.
It is right between Transylvania Twist and Skidoo. which is where a lot of things seem to be ending up right next to Skidoo. and exactly the same score that we gave Omega Cop.
So I guess it's not going to be in anybody's regular rotation.
What's in the rotation right now, Nick?
Yeah, that's a good question. What's currently in the regular rotation?
Really leaning heavily on the Crank series and Jason Statham as a whole.
Oh my gosh!
His film Hummingbird is something to watch.
Now, in fairness, if the hero of this movie could have been Jason Statham, this movie would have been 100 times better, because in our entire talking about this movie, we talked almost nothing about David Andrews as Sam Treadwell, because if you want to talk about one of the most dull, heroic characters you could imagine, this movie has that.
Yeah, there's a line in this movie where there's a plane and he goes, and this guy's like a yuppie, executive type.
But he's been
lawyer.
through the wars. Like, that's the thing.
Where he mentions, he's like, I flew planes like that in the border wars. And I was like, what? Like, what? I'm like, you? I mean, and I don't know. Yeah, I think it would have been better if they just had found somebody other than Melanie Griffith, both somebody who could act, but also just somebody who you could believe could be tough, because she just does not look like, she just doesn't play badass.
Well, it's an interesting movie, and not terribly divisive, but in its own way, it has its little moments.
Yeah.
All right. Well, next up, of course, we are going to be moving on with Days of Future Past. We were talking about Ricky O, the story of Ricky, and that I think will be a different story. But
it's 100% polar opposite film. That's for damn sure.
But
you're implying it has a story.
Mm-hmm. We don't want to do that. Let's not talk about that movie before. Let's talk about the business.
All right. If you have not subscribed, you should do so on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Also on your second favorite podcast app. And we are on Instagram at Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo, and we are sponsored by WeTalkPodcast.com, the home of the Octagon. They have a Facebook and they have a Twitter.
Excellent. Well, as I said, Season 13 carries on with Ricky O, the story of Ricky, and this is being Cherry 2000. Anybody else have anything to say about this movie that's not about Melanie Griffith?
Everybody should watch it.
Okay, fair enough. Everybody should put that into their regular rotation for a good solid 6 months.
It's a fun movie.
I'm thinking maybe I should take my fleshlight and douse it in some water and see what happens. What do you guys think?
Oh, go for it.
That's fine.
Maybe don't have it on at the time.
is that if it's a 17-year-old fleshlight, you won't find another model like it.
That's true.
Yeah, so be careful.
If it was a 17-year-old fleshlight, I wouldn't be using it in front of the ear.
Are you saying that you don't regularly wash out your fleshlight?
No different than the door handles.
All right. Well, for Jim and for Jack and for Nick, I am your host, 8th Dan Stanadu, and thanks for listening to the Kung Fu Electric Boogaloo.
In the future, the world has survived. Romance has not.
Right, so we'll say a dinner, complete sexual encounter, optional episode in the morning, right?
I gotta run this past my own lawyer.
Pleasure is strictly business. But it will be possible to have the perfect mate. A Cherry 2000.
Looks great. Thanks.
Thoughtful. Desirable. She'll never run out on him. Just short out.
Sorry, kid. Total internal meltdown. Now you got her basic memory right here. Vocal patterns, verbal, whatever. Basic voice. Don't look so glum. Your chassis out for the count, all right? You got the chip, you go in, you pick yourself out a new model, you slide it in the slot. You got yourself your girl back in a brand new frame.
Give me a call if you find a Cherry. Cherry 2000.
Look, my friend, you're gonna be a very old man, round in the middle and bone dry before you find one of those in these parts.
That's a chance I'll just have to take.
Then, the adventure begins.
Why don't you hire a tracker to go into Zone 7?
We got a policy against trackers in these parts.
Nobody goes into Zone 7.
Look at one of the original warehouses down there. Girls stacked in the shelves like pies.
I'm looking for someone to go into Zone 7.
I'm E. Johnson. You're not gonna find anybody better than me, mister. I'm not a machine. Do you know where they keep these babies? We call it the graveyard. It is the worst place in the zone. Well, maybe I can get in there and find this thing, but I need somebody riding shotgun in order to make it out in one piece.
I want you to chase those birds till they drop.
If you think it's tough to meet the right people now, wait till you go looking for a Cherry 2000.